Hi, I'm Cami from Berlitz, Japan. Today I'm talking with Taheela, who's the Director of Operations at Berlitz, Uruguay. Hi, Taheela.
Hi, Kami.
I really wanted to learn from you about the benefits of being able to speak multiple languages. I know that you come from a mixed background and you grew up speaking four different languages. Which languages did you speak, and what was it like growing up in such a vibrant cultural heritage?
Well, actually, I'm from a multi-ethnic and multilinguistic background simply because of the history of my island. We're pretty diverse and there's a little bit of everyone there. So it's really natural to have multiple languages growing up. In my house, I had English, Spanish, Arabic, and I had some Urdu because Urdu is also very common in our dialect in the island. So a lot of times we have instances where growing up, you learn to say something more in one language than you learn in the other language. And then when you get together with family members, you just kind of juggle around what everybody speaks. You go to one side of the family, you speak Spanish and English. You go to another side of the family, you might be speaking Arabic and English. It was really, really beneficial growing up, having that exposure, not just within my family, but within my wider community and my country.
Do you think that kind of changed the way that you think as well?
Yeah, I do actually. And it's really funny. People ask me this all the time because they find me to be highly adaptable. And I do find myself to be highly adaptable. And I do believe it comes from that. Science proves that speaking more than one language, it opens up a different neural pathway in the brain that helps you to think outside the box or just think outside your norm and way of life. So as opposed to learning one type of norm from one specific culture when I was growing up, I had the opportunity to learn multiple.
That's such a blessing as well to be able to grow up like that. Did it help you at all when you were at school?
Yes. What a lot of people don't know about me is that I started my kindergarten in English, where you also had some integration of Spanish language. And that was when I was 4 years old. And then at 5 years old back home, you start primary school. And you go through primary school until you're 11 or 12, depending on your birthday. And my primary school was an Arabic school. So we were learning in English and Arabic, and you also learn to read and write in Arabic in that school. In my experience, growing up in that type of environment, when I got out into tertiary level education and getting into university, it was so easy for me to connect things within the academic field I was learning because there are so many things that comes with learning and education that is linked to language and culture. I felt that I had jumped those hurdles as a really, really young person. It did help me to advance and graduate out of bachelor's and MBA levels really, really early because I did see higher success like that.
Wow, that's really interesting. I've never heard that perspective before. You also said that like speaking multiple languages helped you blend in when traveling. Can you share a moment when knowing a language helped you connect with locals in a way that most tourists couldn't do?
Oh, of course. I mean, I've traveled extensively through Latin America and Central America. And what I found is being able not just to speak Castellano, because we say speaking Spanish, but there are many different dialects of Spanish. And when you learn Spanish in a formal context, like in high school, you learn Castellano, which is like Spain Spanish. But the benefit of growing up in a multilingual family and one that has Spanish speakers is that you get to learn these dialects that are native to different places. For example, when I would travel through Venezuela back in the early 2010s, everybody thought I was Venezuelan because I just spoke the dialect so naturally and they didn't detect an accent. So they thought I was Venezuelan. And I would get invited to all these little get togethers. People would exchange their numbers with me. I would get the Venezuelan price and not the touristic price for stuff, which was really beneficial. Then coming down to Argentina, which is very different from the rest of South America, Argentina and Uruguay. I enrolled myself at that time in a cultural club because I really wanted to understand Argentinian culture. That helped me a lot with the language that's spoken in this part of the region because it's not similar to what's spoken in terms of their pronunciation. So instead of ¿Cómo te llamas? They will say ¿Cómo te llamas? It's very different. I know a lot of Spanish speakers who do really well in Mexico and other countries, and they will get to here and they're like, I feel like I can't speak Spanish anymore. I was able to adapt really quickly to that. And even cultural norms, like they would hug and kiss each other in the first greeting, even if they don't know you. You could be a perfect stranger. And just being able to blend in and chameleon my way into their little cultural stuff, I was invited to asados really quickly, which is a huge thing here. It's how they get together and just socialize. I was just accepted really into the culture because they didn't feel like I was a foreigner looking for foreign things in their country. They saw that I was appreciating exactly who they are.
When learning a language, it's so important to also learn about the culture as well because you can learn both language and culture at the same time and they help you learn each other, if that makes sense.
Yes, exactly. That's the key, not just learning to speak the language, but taking on the cultural practices of those people. I started drinking mate when I was in Argentina, which is their traditional drink. Everyone will know it because Messi and Suarez usually is on the football field with their mate. And I started drinking mate when I was in Argentina, and it was a way to connect with people and socialize, even here in Uruguay, because the mate is not just about you drinking it, it's about sharing it with your friends, with your colleagues in the workplace. So it's really nice when you blend in like that. You find that people don't see you as an outsider. They actually, with open arms, they welcome you in and they're like, come and learn some more.
Oh, that's great. What about speaking a different language can bring out a different side of your personality? Do you have an example of where you felt that your personality would change depending on which language you were speaking?
Oh, yeah, most definitely.
Yeah.
When I speak English, I'm very direct and I'm very curt because you can sum up a lot that you want to see in just a few words in English. When I
Mm.
speak Spanish specifically, I find that I'm way more expressive. I find that I'm a nicer person. People here do say that to me. There's a huge difference when you speak English from when you speak Spanish. You're softer, your tone is more sympathetic. It's like talking to two different people.
I noticed that as well, living in Japan and speaking English and Japanese. The personality does definitely change depending on which language. And just as you said, it's often because of the way the language is structured and how succinct it is or how
Yes,
easy it is to get across an idea. That's
yes.
really interesting. I know that you also took French classes at Berlitz as a learner. So, what was that experience like for you?
I am currently a French student. It's still ongoing.
For how long? How long has it
No,
been?
because I started last year. Let me give you a little
Oh,
backstory. Actually, I did French in high school because back home where I'm from, well, back then when you did high school, you did English as a subject at school, English literature, also the structure of the language, but you also did Castellano and French. I did French for 3 years and I would not speak a word. Like in theory, I would do really well. And then in my oral exams, I would be so afraid to speak because I've never heard myself speak French before. I was confident in Spanish classes because I spoke Spanish already. My French teacher was so confused because he said, I would expect you, of all the students, because you're the most linguistic person in the class, I would expect you to get into it and speak French. And I was like, no, I just can't. The pronunciation is too weird for me. I don't like how I sound when I hear myself speaking the language. I battled with that all through high school. And when I had the opportunity to stop French, I stopped learning French in high school and I chose something else. Then years later, being here in Uruguay, I met the guy who's now my partner, and he was born and raised in Paris, but also multilingual. He also speaks English and Spanish. So we were able to communicate in two other languages that we both speak. But I kind of felt guilty because I said he speaks to me in my native language. I think I should learn or practice speaking to him in his native language. So I got on the Berlitz On Demand course for French with Berlitz because that works for me. I'm a person that self studies and I need that type of flexibility because with my agenda on the day to day, I don't think I'll be able to keep up connecting to a class. A license that would have allowed me to learn within 6 months. And students usually complete a level with us within 3 to 4 months because they do need that time to get the extra practice. I completed the first level within 5 weeks and I started speaking. I was really committed to the process. I started practicing when I would meet up with my boyfriend, and he was really shocked. He was like, I thought you didn't speak French. I was like, I don't, I'm just learning. You have to practice with me. So I'm still doing that. I'm still progressing through my levels. I'm still trying to become like a C2, very fluent. But yes, I continue to learn French with Berlitz. And so far, it has been the ideal experience because I'm able to learn at my own availability.
Yeah, and I think also one thing that Berlitz is really good at is unlocking passive knowledge, and with real practice is such a great thing to be able to do as well. What about the Berlitz method? Do you think that it influenced your learning outcomes differently compared to other study methods you've had?
Yeah, I truly think the Berlitz method is what unlocked my potential to be able to feel more confident when I'm speaking French. Because in high school, when I learned, it was the traditional method, which is direct translation. And most of the class is spent explaining all of the rules, a lot of grammar in your native language. And then you have just like 5 or 6 minutes of class time where you kind of recite these rehearsed, directly translated sentences. There's nothing to connect with your real day to day life with what you're learning. And Berlitz, whether you're actually taking a total immersion course or you're taking one of the traditional lessons or even self study like I did, which is the on demand, it is a total immersion, I would say. It does take you back in your mind, like when a child learns, because it focuses on teaching you in the target language. And I always say this to clients, for example, when you learn your native language as a child, your parent doesn't teach you grammar. They don't say, okay, this is how you conjugate to be, and then you make me the sentence. No, they start speaking to you. They use gestures. They show you what they're trying to allude to in the conversation. It starts with just one word and then two words and then the bigger sentences. And I literally felt myself progress through Berlitz with the method this way, where first I could only say oui, and then I was able to order something. So from the beginning, yes, it's just one word, bonjour, comment ça va, etc. But stuff that you would have heard listening to movies or just by the way. And then it starts using elements of stuff in daily life to mold the language and help you put it into day to day use. So it is a 100 perfect and effective method because it is the natural method to learn any language.
I completely agree. I'm also someone who studied French for 2 years in high school, and I can't speak a word of French. It was for the same reason because we learned everything quite passively and we memorized vocabulary and grammar. But I think you're such a great example because you have the experience of learning so many languages more through acquisition and through target language only, and you have that comparison. That's great.
Yeah, I do. And it helps me a lot. Being a student of Berlitz too, it helps me a lot when I get into a meeting with a client because a lot of times clients think, well, this is just a person Berlitz hired to sell the product or to convince us that they're better than another institute. But I can literally put my own experience into exemplifying, listen, the method works. Do you understand French? Do you want me to say something to you in French to prove it to you? And they're so amazed because even when we look at the material structure across the Berlitz levels, you learn so much in just the
Mhm.
first level of any language. It's amazing. It's more than I learned in 3 years of French in high school.
Yeah, and you're able to have a reasonable conversation in a variety of settings, even in level one, moving all the way up. You kind of learn more in depth about each of those settings.
Yes, I do agree.
You've been working at Berlitz for many years now. So, what made you decide to stay?
So, just to give you a little background, my dream wasn't always to actually move and settle in South America. When I left my home country, I did have a business before starting to work at Berlitz. My perspective changed when I just immersed myself in Argentinian culture that was so different from everything else I had ever experienced before. And I decided I want to travel a little bit teaching English and just see the world because there's so much more to see and experience. So I applied to Berlitz, Columbia. That was like 7.5 years ago. They accepted me with the idea that I would start that July. And this was around March of 2018. And then within 1 week of agreeing to that, they sent me this opportunity for a project here with Berlitz, Uruguay. So I got on board immediately because I had been to Uruguay 2 times just for like 24 hours in the time that I had spent in Argentina. And it was a nice, small, quiet place, very similar to Buenos Aires, but also with their own particular differences that make them unique here in Uruguay. I did the project. The project finished at the end of 9 months. I decided, you know what? I think I'm going to look into moving over to Santiago, Chile to take up another teaching job there. And for some reason, they really loved me at Berlitz and saw a lot of potential. The director at that time, she flew over from Argentina and she offered me this position, which was the leader of customer experience because they thought with my portfolio that I could do so much. And they said to me, your smile is so warm and you're so welcoming and everyone who has had experience with you, like they really like you and they talk so positively. And I started in that role that very year. And then from after that, Berlitz has just become a place where you're not an employee because we don't refer to each other as employees. You're a team member. It's a place for me where my team members became my friends and then they became my family. It's really a sense of community and it's very enriching in comparison to a lot of other experiences that I've had before coming to Berlitz. I feel like Berlitz is like a gem. It's a diamond of a place to work at. I don't see myself leaving because they've convinced me that this is the place to be. There's so much room to grow. I love that they see your potential. They see the
Mhm.
potential in every team member. They want to invest in that potential by making you a bigger part of this company, by making you more involved. When I connect to work, I connect with a smile because I'm happy to connect to my job at Berlitz.
It's so great that Berlitz does prioritize people with teaching experience and helping them to grow so that everyone at every level of the company knows what it's like to work directly with students and help them learn a language and they understand the hardships of our customers.
And that's another great part of Berlitz. They've been around for so long. We've been around now for almost 150 years. I always say we're like the Oxford University of the Language Institutes because we're the longest standing language institute around. And I feel like that speaks for itself. The country managers that I have been in contact with, they have been in the company 20 plus years and they also started off as instructors. So it's evidence that when you get in, you're not always going to stay where you entered. You go through all of the different realms and all that Berlitz has to offer as long as it's something that you want as well.
Absolutely. What would you say to someone who's considering learning a new language but is a bit hesitant or scared to start?
I would say, first of all, get in contact with Berlitz and just make up your mind to take the limits off of yourself. When you're in a Berlitz class, you're just you and give yourself the room to enjoy the experience. Enjoy making the mistakes in the classroom and learning from them because that's where you're going to perfect the language.
I think that one's also a bit of a big question for customers in Japan as well, because they really don't have much experience speaking English. And hearing that your lessons are going to be completely in the target language, even from lesson one, can be very intimidating. But what did you think, like even lesson one being completely in the target language in French, for example?
I was really nervous in the first instances, but after a while, I just threw myself into it and kind of took off the I'm a perfectionist and I want to get it right the first time around because it's probably not going to happen when you're learning a language that's not connected to the language family that you actually speak in your day to day. So that's what I would say, take off the perfectionist you. I know Asian people have the culture of perfection, but that one has to take a back burner when you're in the classroom speaking a language that doesn't belong to your language family because it's more than likely that there will be a little more mistakes along the way, but it doesn't mean that you're imperfect. It just means that you're working towards perfection.
I like that. Okay, well, those were my main questions for you. And I've got a few quick fire questions that I also want to ask. Just give me one sentence answer for each one. Some of them are tricky. My first one is, what is one piece of advice for students that are trying to reach fluency?
Practice, practice, practice.
Why Berlitz?
Because it has everything that could be adapted to every learning style and every language need.
What was your first impression of Berlitz?
It's a very nice blend between old school and new school. So old school and modernization.
What do you like most about Berlitz?
I love Berlitz. There's a lot of stuff that I love, but I do love the sense of community across all the teams. You can meet someone for the first time from another team and you already feel like you've known them your entire life.
What is the most useful English phrase?
Let's see. That's a difficult one. I'll go with a saying that my parents always used to tell me in English, all work and no play makes Jack a dull boy. So even when you're learning a new language, like don't pressure yourself too much to do all of the practice in a very structured way. Play with the language, have fun with it.
What's a phrase that a lot of people get wrong, or a word that people often mispronounce in any language of your choice?
I'll do this one that's a common error with English and Spanish. It's a false friend. People most often think that embarrassed in English is equated to the word embarazada in Spanish. And embarazada means pregnant. It does not mean embarrassed.
I can see a lot of disasters with that. What inspired you to join Berlitz and help people learn languages?
Because of my background, I feel like when you can speak another language, it's a direct pathway into an entirely different universe. This is my advice to the rest of the globe. There is a whole other world available to you when you can speak another language, be it intermediate level or professional level. That world is still available to you, and you discover another part of yourself with every additional language that you acquire.
Wow, that's really good. What is the most rewarding part about your job here at Berlitz?
Just the interaction with all of the different people. I feel like I've been around the globe without exactly getting on a plane. The community on an international level that it fosters, that to me is one of my pride and joys about Berlitz.
How do you see your role making a difference in helping people connect across 70 countries?
It has a lot to do with not just who I am in the professional setting, because it's kind of who I am holistically. I'm a
Mhm.
multi-dimensional, multicultural person, and I like to use that as one of the benefits to having me as a part of the team. Whenever there's possibility or there's an opportunity to connect with someone from a different culture or connect with someone from a different part of the region that I work with, I go to that and I grab that. I always find a way where we can include it into who we are as part of our company ethos, as part of who we are just in general as the Berlitz team. Bringing that multiculturalism as a daily part of things that are celebrated within the company, it makes it really enriching in terms of level of experience for our clients, also the team members that help them want to stay and give longevity to the company, that keep things sort of constant in an ever changing world.
What's one thing about working with languages that keeps you excited every day?
Oh, it just stimulates my brain in a whole different way. I love learning. I think you should never stop learning new things. There's actually scientific research that shows if you keep learning, you tend to avoid debilitating nervous system diseases. Learning is something that's constant.
If you could learn any language overnight, what would it be and why?
I would actually learn Italian. There is something about Italy. I have never felt drawn to any country like that in my life. I do not know if it's the food, because carbs are my weakness. They just have like the best of everything, even the way the language sounds. And it's already in the family of languages that I speak. I think it would be easy to acquire. But I would love to speak that just fluently. I would love to be able to wake up one day and go, oh, I speak Italian.
Tahila, thank you so much. You definitely helped me learn even more about all of the benefits that you can get in almost every aspect of your life from being able to learn different languages. And one of my favorite takeaways from you was it doesn't matter if you're going to learn a new language up to beginner, intermediate, or advanced level, even just learning a little bit can open a whole new world up for you, which is such true and great advice.
Yes, I do hope that it inspires every person that wants to learn a second language, and even people who didn't consider it before, that my story really does help them just learn.
Absolutely. You've definitely inspired me. To everybody who's currently thinking about learning a new language or in the middle of learning one now, good luck. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.